Hi, I'm Mike Lappel for BizNews.com. News breaking this morning from our partners, the Financial Times, that the UK government has drawn a line in the sand, retrospectively banning Bain and Company from doing any work with the UK government from January 2022 based on the firm's conduct in South Africa under Jacob Zuma's presidency. You've been advocating for there to be consequence for what two commissions of inquiry in this country found. Lord Peter Hain, it's good to chat to you again. Your reaction to the news?
I've been pressing the government to do this for some time because it seemed to me that companies like Bain, and they have been savagely condemned by the Zondo Commission and referred for prosecution, should not be able to conduct their business elsewhere, including the UK, as if nothing had happened in South Africa, as if they hadn't connived with former President Zuma to dismember the tax collecting agency SARS. And at least some action has been taken, and I hope that other action will follow.
Amendments 184 and 187, what is the state of play regarding those? And is this public sector ban instituted under those amendments or existing legislation?
Amendments were ones I moved in the committee stage in the House of Lords about a month ago to the procurement bill, which covers tendering and procurement by government. So it was the ideal vehicle in which to press this matter. Jacob Rees-Mogg told me, the Cabinet Office Minister responsible and who's taken this decision, and I commend him for it. We don't agree very much on anything politically, but he deserves praise for doing this. He said he has the existing powers to do it, so my amendments were not necessary. I can return to them and may well do so, but it's good at least that the action has followed on his part, and I hope that others will follow suit. For example, the American government. I've contacted the American ambassador, urged him to do the same, urged President Biden's administration to do the same thing, because, you see, I think it's really important that companies like Bain that have indulged in this complicity with corruption and state capture have got to feel the pain elsewhere. Else they'll do it again in some other country, if not in South Africa. And they're Boston originated in the USA company with a global reach, including their office in London. And of course, what I explained to Cabinet Office Minister Rees-Mogg, with Athol Williams, the brave Bain whistleblower whom I took with me to explain the detail and provide the specific evidence, which we did, that the government wanted in order to take this action. I explained that the London operation was working hand in glove with the South African operation when this scandalous behavior took place. So it wasn't as if London can say, well, nothing to do with us. Bain South Africa is an entirely different operation. The truth is, senior partners from both London and South Africa were working together in this, and ultimately Bain South Africa was accountable to Bain London, and Jacob Rees-Mogg clearly took that into account.
Now, Bain, from its side, has repaid 217 million rand that it earned in fees at the South African Revenue Service. You're saying it's earned roughly 2 billion rand and counting from the work it did and continues to do in South Africa. Vittorio Massone, the office head here, he left and is in Italy. What does full amends from their side look like in your mind?
The Zondo Commission recommended that all of their public procurement type of consultancy work, right across the board, from Eskom to SAA and other state-owned enterprises, should be investigated with a view to prosecution. Now, that's pretty heavy stuff. And the Judicial Commission under Chief Justice Zondo didn't do that lightly. They did it because the evidence was pretty stark. So I think, first of all, that needs to follow its course. And I hope that Bain are not getting any public contracts in South Africa at the moment, because I gather they are doing quite well in the country. So to make amends, I think that course should follow through. and we'll see whether prosecutions result. I also think they've got to be prepared to pay back all of their money, the 2 billion rand or so that was earned to SOEs during the Zuma-Gupta period, because there might well be, as Zondo suggested was the case, other examples of unlawful activity that they need to make amends for. In the case of Britain, what the government has done is suspended their ability to tender for public contracts for 3 years. That gives enough time to assess whether they really have changed their modus operandi, whether they are now operating in a proper fashion. Because they shouldn't be allowed to simply walk into public contracts in Boston or Washington, D.C., or London or Paris or Berlin or Beijing or Delhi, for that matter, as if nothing happened in South Africa. This is a global firm and a global brand. And they and other corporates, the KPMGs and McKinseys and so on, frankly need to feel the pain for what they allowed to happen in South Africa, or it could happen again.
Now, Bain has spent a lot of time putting their version of events forward on their website, and I'd just like to read you an extract. This is a direct quote. "As a firm, we are always accountable, and we recognize that we must accept responsibility for allowing Bain's name and Bain's work to be used to support state capture. Bain does not, however, accept that its representatives knowingly participated in state capture or an effort to damage SARS." Close quote. What do you make of that?
The initial part of what you read out seems all very well, but to say that they didn't knowingly do this, when they met, as I understand it, President Zuma privately at least 17 times to plan how they would seek to wreck SARS and stop it collecting taxes in the efficient way that it done, and allowing some of President Zuma's cronies to escape their tax obligations. That's what this whole operation was about. And for them still to use these weasel words, I find astonishing, frankly, and it just gives me even more impetus and determination to target them, because they still haven't come clean. And by the way, they are still hounding and intimidating and harassing Athol Williams, who was a senior partner for a quarter of a century with Bain. They sacked him for whistleblowing, for telling the truth, and they then hounded him. They financially penalized him. They and their business friends in South Africa have got to start behaving differently. And I think that goes for the whole of the business community, which hasn't really praised Athol Williams as an example, a business model, if you like, of how business people in South Africa should behave, and opened their arms to him and provided other opportunities for him to continue to work in the country, instead of which he's felt it necessary to flee the country and to be located in the UK. So when I took him to see Jacob Rees-Mogg a few weeks ago, Athol was able to explain in great detail what had actually happened. And I think Bain should make amends with him and financially compensate him and praise him for what he did, if they really believe that the ethical standards they claim to represent mean anything.
The company also states that neither commission of inquiry recommended Bain be prosecuted. Now, while that may be technically correct, Zondo's commission recommended, as you said, all their contracts be reviewed with a view for prosecution. Is Bain putting the cart conveniently before the horse here?
I think any fair-minded person reading what Zondo said, and you have very fairly read it out, would conclude that something unlawful was going on here, not just in respect of SARS, and Zondo specifically labelled Bain as operating unlawfully. That was their phrase, literally. So Bain can't wriggle out of this with these kind of spurious and specious excuses. Just own up. I think they'd gain far more respect, not just from me, if that matters, but from the wider community and from governments across the world if they were just honest and said, "Look, this was wrong. We apologise. We're not making excuses. We're not trying to pretend we didn't do what we did." Then they can start again. And I think there's one other point to be made here. South Africa needs global corporates involved in its business sector. It needs the best of them because they set a global standard. And South Africa needs more foreign investment. But so long as companies like Bain refuse to really come clean, then there will be this dark cloud of uncertainty and lack of confidence in the South African economy. And it certainly has had a drought of foreign investment in recent years. And that corner needs to be turned for the growth to start picking up again and the economy to be put back on track.
Lastly, the UK government has now banned this company from doing work for its public sector based on the alleged crimes committed in this country. Yet this country, let's call it the scene of the crime, continues to do business with Bain. Is that disheartening to you and your efforts from afar?
It seems to me that those organizations, I don't know whether there are any public contracts involved, but frankly, if there are, they should be immediately frozen and stopped, because I don't think if the British government can suspend contracts with Bain for 3 years, then the very least the South African government can do is the same. But even in the private sector, apparently Bain is doing very well at the moment. It seems as if the South African business community doesn't seek to reach for the high standards that are needed. There were corrupt politicians, and frankly, there still are in South Africa. There were under the Zuma period at the very highest level of government, but they could not have done this on their own. Not even the Gupta brothers could have looted on the prodigious scale they did without businesses, including global corporates, helping them do that. They couldn't have done it on their own. It was global corporates such as Bain that allowed them to do it. It was global corporates that set up their shady shell companies, front companies with the true beneficial owners, hiding behind all sorts of front organizations. It was lawyers and accountants and auditors and consultants and estate agents who allowed all this looting and money laundering and assets to be hidden and smuggled around the world to happen. So it wasn't just the corrupt politicians, though they may have been and were indeed the original architects, and they should be condemned and prosecuted. But it was also the businesses that helped them do it. And I say that not as an anti-business person. On the contrary, I want to see a thriving business sector. You can't get the jobs that are desperately needed and the economy that South Africa requires in order to be successful without a thriving private sector. But it's got to be a clean one.
Lord Hain, pleasure chatting to you again. Thank you for your continued work.